Welcome and hello. It's very exciting to be here at Autodesk's first ever Advanced Manufacturing Summit, and we're so thrilled about our presenters so far. I'm here at the Autodesk Technology Center in San Francisco, right at the pier, with our 3D printing lab right behind us. My name is Leanne Gluck, and I lead the business and industry strategy for additive manufacturing here at Autodesk, with a particular focus on our Fusion 360 platform. 2020 has been a landmark year, and we have seen the impact of the COVID crisis on the manufacturing industry, from interruptions to supply chains, to figuring out how workers can do their jobs remotely, to the needs for product innovation, especially in the medical industry. And as we have seen, the additive industry has in so many ways risen to the challenge these current times have presented. From mobilizing to manufacture PPE, to redesigning and producing ventilators, to companies like Formlabs manufacturing 3D printed swabs, the COVID crisis has shown that 3D printing plays a key role to responding quickly to whatever comes. We mobilized very quickly around PPE, but what really struck me when this all started was that this won't be the last emergency, and this won't be the last thing that we need to make quickly. We will have new issues that will compound. The next disruption may be a natural phenomenon, like another hurricane, a geopolitical issue, or another health crisis. And we've seen the need for growing collaborative platforms and cloud-based software that Autodesk provides to help us meet these challenges. Today, we are seeing the vision of additive manufacturing truly become a reality, helping us to diversify our supply chains, support new product innovation, retool our factories, and help shift us on reliance from that long global supply chain to more local, distributed, and on-demand manufacturing. And at Autodesk, we know that additive manufacturing software solutions play a key role in actualizing and expanding the vision for AM. You know, what I see is that the 3D printing market and 3D printing in your industry and companies will be driven by applications. Applications are driven by design, and design is largely driven by people and by software. Our vision for additive at Autodesk is to make 3D printing as smooth and accessible for your designers, your engineers, and your technicians as possible, streamlining design-to-print workflows, and bringing functionalities like latticing, like simulation, and build preparation directly into the CAD environment. And within the context of Fusion 360, 3D printing becomes not just a standalone tool, but a key tool within a powerful toolbox. A toolbox that provides subtractive tools for hybrid manufacturing and additive robotics, electronics functionality to support the growing trends in 3D printing for consumer electronics, as well as design exploration through generative design, and much more. One of the questions we've been asking ourselves is, how do we help our customers and our engineers and designers make decisions early on around what design, with what machine, and with what material, at what cost, as early on in the process as possible? And we are also asking questions like, what new kinds of products and innovations can we enable when our software allows us to do new things, like simulate for impact and energy absorption, modulate stiffness of material, distribute soft and hard materials to create things like interlocking joints, and design for heat transfer, adding voids to plastic to resist the transfer of heat, or designing to increase heat flow. And we will continue to push the envelope to optimize and simplify design for additive with our software, moving additive design from this black box, black art that only a few people know how to do, to one where our software helps to automate and inform the process. As you've seen in your companies, the 3D printing market across the board is moving from early adopters to the early majority. And Autodesk is leading the way in what I like to say, opening the aperture and enabling additive manufacturing across all industries, helping our customers to cross that chasm. And we're doing this with software products like Fusion 360, which is affordable and accessible enough to sit on every engineer and designer's desktop across companies, both large and small, allowing you to access the tools you need to innovate. We continue to push the needle with collaborations with software products and applications. And the community is seeing this. E3D, for example, has been working on pairing additive with subtractive. In fact, they just released a new subtractive tool that works with their tool changer system. The additive and subtractive tools are alternated throughout the print, so that milling of otherwise impossible to reach features is now possible. Historically, combining additive and subtractive G-code files needed to be done manually. But E3D looked at what software could generate both additive and subtractive toolpaths and combine them automatically. They ended up choosing Fusion 360 for this task and recently released a plugin for the community to download and to use. Thinking about 3DP in architecture and construction, during the summit we heard the LaSalle story about a modular machine concept for manufacturing large-scale components using a hybrid approach. In our next software release, we are coming to market with the first concrete printer support in NetFab. And we will continue to expand applications for green technologies for various industries, something that I am personally really passionate about, by leveraging new optimization workflows, using tools like generative design and simulation. We are continuing to reduce the number of parts to failure, reduce weight, and increase performance. Now, I remember over 6 years ago when GE first talked about using 3D printing for component parts of the LEAP engine, and my thought then was the same as it is now. What is possible when we expand? When we have not just one, but thousands of 3D printed parts in thousands of jet engines across thousands of airplanes in dozens of airlines. This means billions of dollars in savings, a step change in lowering emissions and energy efficiency across the board, and that is just one industry. What will emerge as we reopen our country? And how will additive manufacturing continue to support? What new things will we need to make? New ways to open doors without touching them to get into our offices? New screening devices at airports? Where and how will we make them? And what about the next shortage that will emerge, and how will that affect our supply chain, whether around materials or products? What future demands will we see for unavailable or costly products due to continued supply chain disruption? And how will we operate, redeploy assets, or retool our factory lines to grow capacity? What does it really take to change? I'm excited to introduce Rush LaSalle from Jabil and Brian Betty from Ultimaker to answer some of these questions and talk about the trends they are seeing around democratizing production in region, lifecycle management and shifting production lines, and new product innovation. Ultimaker is one of the leading manufacturers of 3D printers and software focused on plastic filament technology. Globally, they supply some of the world's largest manufacturers with systems for use from R&D to production floors. Jabil is a $25 billion manufacturing solutions provider that provides design manufacturing, supply chain, and product management services, working with a broad range of industries and enabling innovation, growth, and success. The combined power of additive manufacturing software from Autodesk, 3D printing hardware, materials, and training from Ultimaker, and global manufacturing solutions from Jabil are truly helping our industry and our customers to rise to the challenge of manufacturing through change.
Thanks, Leanne. And I would like to thank the entire crew at Autodesk for the invite to talk about change in manufacturing. I'm here today in Autodesk Technology Center in Boston, and I have to say, it's pretty amazing. You know, I don't believe Autodesk could have chosen a more apt theme for this year's conference. With the hits a lot of companies have taken to their supply chain this year, most are getting a crash course in adapting to rapid changes in their manufacturing environments. Ultimaker works with manufacturers large and small that are spread vastly across the spectrum of size, innovation, and global reach. So we see a lot of the challenges that they're dealing with on a daily basis. Going forward, the need to shift back from global to regional production will be more and more important. 3D Hubs put out a great report on supply chain resiliency. If you haven't read it, you should. It's really worth the read. They found that 72% of companies have experienced supply chain disruptions over the last 10 years. 72%. That's a big number. Now, I'm sure not all of those have been on the scale that we've seen in 2020, but they found that 59% of companies believe geographically distributing their supply chain is the best way to avoid disruptions in the future. Ultimaker and the additive world en masse have been talking about moving to a digital warehouse for some time now. We've started to see the realization of this, starting to see the printer become the new form of the UPS truck. But localized production is not a small challenge. There are a lot of skill sets that need to be learned. We've deployed Ultimaker's accelerator program with a decent number of large manufacturers now, and we see that there's a skills gap at the local manufacturing level. The vast majority of manufacturing sites aren't ready to adopt 3D printing. We've taken the approach that the best way to prepare them is through manufacturing aids. This allows them to get used to the technology in a low-risk environment that still provides the company gains in terms of cost reductions, lead time reductions, and increased uptime of manufacturing equipment. But in order to really democratize production in region, manufacturers need to start looking internally at their resources and at the available technology to start to develop a transformation roadmap that helps to make the changes stick. The increasing demands of customers and consumers aren't going anywhere in the near future. So companies have to make sure that the changes that they're looking at making are not only quantifiable, but that they're transferable region to region and plant to plant. As buyers expect assurance of supply and lowest landed costs, Rush, how are Jabil and its customers tackling regionalization?
Thank you, Brian and Leanne. We really appreciate that given this time of discontinuity, Autodesk is investing to bring our manufacturing community together to compare notes on how the business is changing. And boy, is it changing. There are a lot of dynamics taking place in the manufacturing community, and the conversation with our customers around supply chain resiliency certainly grew on the heels of not only the COVID-19 pandemic that's been ravaging our supply chain since back in February, but also with the trade and tariff escalations more than a year ago now. That said, COVID has severely impacted over 51,000 company supply chains since February. To level set with the audience, according to the World Trade Organization, over 60% of consumer products and over 40% of technology, media, and telecom are sourced from China. And while there's been a heavy push to regionalize production, the process will likely take the form of augmented dependency on Asia, not necessarily a wholesale migration. The reality is that it is hard to move large and entrenched supply chains, especially those found in places like the electronics components manufacturing community, as well as textile manufacturing. The reason this is important is that while digital technologies are increasingly making it possible to reshore certain portions of the supply chain, the manufacturing of many of the components will remain connected to low-cost labor pools for years to come. This makes the integration of design, engineering, and production critical, as product realization will continue to require collaboration across remote teams, increasingly using platforms such as Autodesk's Fusion 360. To truly harness the flexibility of digital in combination with robust design tools, our teams have focused on standardization of additive processes and others to harmonize and streamline design to delivery. This includes applying design rules associated with the specific materials and additive processes so that we can quickly get parts into printers across our network with confidence that will achieve repeatability from batch to batch, printer to printer, site to site, and region to region. Quality systems are also a critical area of focus for our factories as additive platforms increasingly make their way into our production floors. These processes, with all the variability that enables their flexibility, whether used in regulatory industries or for general industry applications, must be agile, while ensuring the product meets customer requirements as well as those associated with various industry standards, including ISO 9001. While companies such as Ultimaker are making the 3D printing process ready for a host of applications, it is important to look upstream and downstream in the manufacturing process to match steps throughout the production process. This is critical because while additive is capable of the speed of digital, its benefits may be lost if processes either upstream or downstream inhibit that speed and agility. In addition to reviewing the overall production process to realize many of these benefits of digital, it's important to also consider the full product lifecycle. Additive manufacturing has certainly proven its value in areas where customization is key. We think about dental aligners, we think about custom insoles, and we're beginning to think about implants, where the effectiveness and efficacy of a customized product tailored to your unique body has tremendous value. And we shouldn't forget that in the in-ear hearing aid market, there was heavy disruption over a short period of 2 years where additive converting technology completely usurped the use of conventional manufacturing technologies. However, the majority of products Jabil produces for its customers will be delivered through CNC and injection molding machines at the apex of their production life cycles and volumes. Even in these cases, when the design, process, and materials are managed appropriately, the life cycle can flow seamlessly with reduced risk and cost between digital and traditional technologies. As the vast majority of manufacturing continues to be high volume for Jabil and its peer group, we see additive predominantly applied in the very earliest phases of the production life cycle. To put context around this, an ARC research report states that the market for end-use parts is estimated to be $490 billion, with an AM penetration rate of only 1%. While in the prototype and bridge space, in 2019, the market represented $12.5 billion with a 40 to 50% penetration rate. As the cost of additive manufacturing materials and platforms continue to decline and their speeds and throughputs increase, leading companies continue to invest into additive as the technology makes its way further into the product lifecycle. Lastly, as we think about moving production within our factory network, one of the largest costs that is commonly overlooked across the industry is tooling and fixturing to make a production process ready for manufacturing. A study was recently conducted by ARC Research that suggests that the market for tooling and fixturing is $30 billion, and that additive is now penetrated over 5%. 5% may not seem like a large number, but within our factories, where we've used platforms such as those provided by Ultimaker, we've documented savings of over 30% when compared to outsourcing conventional solutions. But more importantly, reduced time to production, which in the end helps us better utilize our assets in getting products to market no matter where we find ourselves in the product lifecycle. Brian, what is Ultimaker seeing in terms of other customers as they transition through various lifecycle phases and volumes?
You know, we definitely see the shortening lives of today's production lines. A few years ago, a production line may have been operating at maximum capacity for 7+ years without major changes. But that's starting to wane a bit. We're starting to see the impact of faster product innovations and shorter product life cycles in the form of more frequent retooling due to these design changes. Certainly, engineers have done a good job keeping as much of the production line relevant as possible. But each product iteration requires new tools, new jigs, fixtures, and sometimes an entirely new production line. With this retooling, some are of course looking at cost reductions, which they can achieve through using in-house printers, but they're also looking at reducing the time needed to get a new line up and running, or to be able to switch over from one product to another more effectively with less downtime. As the volume starts to fall off, they're also looking at low volume production. There are a few early innovators that are starting to look at their end-of-life volumes through the lens of additive, but we haven't seen this in any meaningful scale yet. Some of our customers are starting to think more strategically towards the future though, and are starting to train their R&D guys on how to future-proof products for eventual additive production. As the demands on product lifecycle management increase, shortening life cycles reduce the available time to amortize costs associated with tooling lines up. Rush, as one of the world's top contract manufacturers, how is Jabil dealing with the shortening of product life cycles and the need to rapidly adjust to changing product innovations?
As Jabil and its customers have responded to changes in the market, including tariffs, pandemics, and other global conditions, additive has certainly earned its place as a powerful weapon in bridging from design to delivery. However, we believe this is not relegated to market shocks like we've recently seen. We are experiencing trickle-down effect from consumer empowerment at the hand of digital brokers such as Amazon. It's driving much shorter product life cycles, smaller batch sizes, and demands for faster market response, which challenges conventional manufacturing, which is typified by investing in expensive tooling and having to run thousands, if not millions, of products to justify the initial investment. To satisfy the need for speed, we are increasingly using additive to enable faster iteration of tool design as compared to traditional methods of outsourcing and soft tooling. We've had tool shop managers across our factory network document cases where a conventional production tooling cycle has taken up to 4 to 6 weeks, from initial design through validation to delivery to our lines. When they've used alternative methods such as an Ultimaker print farm on site, the cycle time was cut to 1 week. That represents a 3 to 5 week savings, which can represent millions of dollars of increased product sales as customers head into a holiday buying season. In a similar fashion, we're accelerating the validation of products and obtaining certifications and approvals through the use of our additive processes. While we're likely all tired of hearing about COVID and the run on personal protective equipment, this is precisely where additive delivers great value to our healthcare community through leveraging idle printers to qualify and supply additive PPE for first responders. This acceleration is not expected to end with the pandemic response, as more economical, small batch production will be enabled for focus groups and regional market testing. Again, we are already seeing our customers' product design teams better align their product development and new product introduction to the demands of an increasingly empowered base of consumers through the use of digital technology. Out of the groundswell of additive response to the pandemic, it also appears that the industry is embracing the power of democratization not only for design, but in distributing production across a network of digital assets. We are exceptionally proud that Jabil was able to leverage its digital investment in being one of a large number of entities to respond to the COVID crisis, as one of our contributions included delivery of a critical respirator component to acute care hospitals. Within 2 weeks of initial contact from one of our long-standing healthcare customers, Jabil began shipping tens of thousands of components with the requisite level of quality and documentation to acute care hospitals. While I believe getting through the qualification process unto itself was impressive, what was also truly remarkable was the orchestration of production on printers beyond Jabil's factory network in leveraging other suppliers and ecosystem partners. What we see coming out of the shifting consumer and manufacturing landscape is more collaboration across the production ecosystem. Key to enabling this collaboration will be expanding levels of design rules and standards around additive manufacturing processes. As we think about the standardization that permits stable production, Ultimaker has been a great partner for Jabil in realizing more rapid deployment and redeployment of our manufacturing through tooling shops and on the production floor. Brian, maybe you can share more about your efforts to drive flexibility into the manufacturing environment.
Thanks, Rush. One of the key functions of a 3D printing manufacturer is to provide flexibility. The flexibility to make rapid product iterations on the fly, or the flexibility to rapidly print a broken part for a machine that's down. Across the various 3D printing suppliers, flexibility has different meanings though, depending on who you are and the strengths of your ecosystem. I think Ultimaker is probably best known for our open material platform. Our marketplace has materials from some of the world's largest and best known material suppliers, including a few novel Jabil materials that were recently launched. The open material platform allows customers to remain flexible with materials according to the needs of their various applications. We have some customers lately who have an eye on maintaining flexibility while ensuring that their own high quality standards are met. They've put in a material evaluation and qualification process to allow their engineers access to a suite of materials that they know meets their internal material performance criteria, but also allows their engineers the flexibility to choose from materials based on the requirements of a particular application. But those same engineers have more than just material needs. As product innovation happens more rapidly and life cycles get shorter, the manufacturing floor shifts towards more complex changing landscape. If you can quickly redeploy your print assets right where you need them, when you need them, you allow the engineers the most flexibility and the best working conditions to get the job done right, done quickly, and done in the most cost-effective manner possible. This is exactly where some of Ultimaker's customers are headed. During the shutdowns this year, we saw a lot of customers actually buying their engineers printers for their homes. Since most engineers are working remotely, or at least working a percentage of their time remotely, with the printer at their home, they're still able to design parts and test iterations, or even print parts for their next trip to the office. The more connected users are actually keeping the printers at the office and managing those printers remotely through Ultimaker's digital factory. We too have had to adapt to a lot of changes recently though. 2018 and 2019 showed the vulnerability of supply chains to the effects of politics and tariffs. And 2020 pushed that to the limit with an entire global collapse of the supply chain, as nearly every non-essential manufacturer shut its doors for at least some period of time. Unfortunately, the world's shutdown wasn't a coordinated effort. So various suppliers had staggered startups and staggered product availability. Because of this, a number of our customers are starting to look at their MRO cabinet as a source of both risk and opportunity. And they're looking to implement an additive strategy to address the lead times, costs, and risks on an uncertain and potentially volatile supply in their MRO parts. I don't think anyone will argue that in the next 6 to 12 months, the world will continue to see changes. While trying to deal with the PPE needs of an entire world's population, 2020 brought about the largest rapid redeployment of assets seen since the Second World War. This time, we had a new technology to help though. The additive industry has been preaching about the benefits of 3D printing for years, but in 2020, the world finally heard the call. Additive is not a panacea, but deployed correctly, 3D printing is a tool that can no longer be ignored. The next 5 years will continue to pressure the world's manufacturers to regionalize their production. Additive's role in that mission will only continue to grow. The Autodesk Suite and Fusion 360 will continue to drive part creation, transformation, and the creation of part libraries around the world. And as it does, we will start to realize more of the digital library, and we will truly start to accelerate the world's transition to local, digital, distributed manufacturing. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the conference.